Today we're going to talk about putting. Putting is something that I get this statement from players a lot. They often say, oh, my putting's okay. And they don't say it's a weakness, they don't say it's a strength, they often say it's okay. When I press them sometimes with some questions, I usually find out pretty quickly that their definition of okay actually means that there's a lot of things that we can get better at. One thing that I see a lot of inconsistencies in putting is the way that a player sets up to hit a putt. So today this video is going to be a putting basics video. We're going to talk setup to make sure that we can hit our putts the same way every time. And then in future videos, we'll talk about speed control and different things like that. So here's your putting basic setup video. So obviously, whether we have a 3-foot putt or we have a 100-foot putt, we're always using our putter. It's the only club we have to use from these scenarios here. So the setup should be fairly consistent. So let's talk about a few things. There's a couple things we can talk about. There is our posture. There is our ball position. There's the way we let our arms hang. There's the way we lay the putter down. There's a bunch of different things that we can do. The first thing we're going to talk about is posture. All right, so let's talk posture. First thing I'm going to do when we talk about posture is I'm actually going to take the putter away, because something that we have to get an understanding of is how we should set our body up even if there was no putter there. Because, and we'll talk about how to set the putter up, but a lot of people tend to kind of move their arms around. They have really tall posture, really bent over posture. If there's one thing we need in our putting stroke, is usually we need some pretty soft arms and we need some space for them to come through. So if we think about it right now, what I'll have players do is I'll have them bend their knees a little bit and tip a little bit over at the hips. And all what I want them to feel is like the weight is in the middle of their feet, so they're fairly stable. And now we're gonna let our arms hang. We're not gonna try to force them. We're just gonna let our arms hang. And if we can hang our arms and swing them back and forth and we're not coming up and we're hitting our legs, I think we're in a pretty good spot. I'll just caution, obviously, yes, we can overdo it if we're out in this direction, but usually that's going to force some weight onto our toes. So if we get set up in what we'll call an athletic position, a little bit of bend in our knees, we'll bend at the hips and let our arms hang. If we can move our arms back and forth and feeling like the weight's in the middle of our feet, we've got a pretty good setup posture. So now when we introduce the golf club or the putter, I mentioned soft arms. And what I mean by that is oftentimes players have been told that they have to have really straight arms and they can't bend them and they're supposed to keep the triangle. We know that that's not possible, because if we have tension, too much tension, that's drastically going to affect our putter path, our putter face, and ultimately is really going to limit the way that we hit good putts. If you think about it, there's a joint here, there's a joint here, there's a joint here. We can't keep those joints locked in. There's a bunch of different ways we can grab our putter, but here's a tip I'm going to give you. I want you to think that you're going to have soft arms and feel like your elbows are more pointed into your body. When we see players that get their elbows out, they can get some very funky wrist conditions, and that can lead to a bunch of problems. But right now, from a high level perspective, without getting super individualized, is let's feel like we're going to get set up in that athletic posture, and let's feel like we have some soft arms that are going to feel like our elbows are pointing towards our body. Another way that we can do it, and I'll give you this angle, I'll give you two angles, is you can set up, you can point your elbows towards your body, get them into your body, and then bend over. So tall, putter out, elbows into your body, and then we bend at the hips. And again, this is actually kind of falling back to that starting position I had, where I had some space for my arms to go through. Same thing from this position. I'm starting very tall, arms are out, elbows into my body, and now I get in that athletic position. So that's what we're going to do when we talk about posture. Now, let's go over to the other side and let's talk a little bit about ball position. Hey, thanks for watching this video. I just have a quick favor to ask. You make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Always like my videos, and make sure you hit that little bell to make sure that you get notifications when I drop more videos just like this. And as always, if you ever have any questions, please post them in the comments down below. I respond to every comment. Now back to your video. So we've talked about posture. We've talked a way that we can check with the arms. We've also talked a little bit about the arms job as well. So now let's assume that we know how to get set up to a golf shot, at least good enough for now. One thing that is often messed up badly is ball position. A lot of players have often been told to just put the ball in the middle of your feet when you're putting, and that's the way to do it. One thing I need you for a player, as a player, to check what you do. The first thing we need to know is, how is our shaft set up? Because some players set up with some forward shaft lean, some players set up with a shaft that's more neutral, some players set up with a shaft that is slightly back. And how we set that up, one, I need you to know because it might surprise you, but two, that drastically affects our ball position and the strike that we can have on this ball. It's very common as a fault that I see players set up with the ball in the middle of their stance, and they set up with a little bit of hands forward. Well, if you think about it now as I make my stroke, that's going to cause me to want to hit down on this golf ball and hit it very high on the putter face. That's going to cause this ball to hop a lot, and then that's going to make our speed control extremely inconsistent. So before we even set up to hit our first putt, what I want you to do is, we have an idea how our arms should feel those elbows in, and we want that athletic posture. All what I want you to do is, once we get in that setup, I just want you to set up, and I want you to make a few rehearsal strokes. And what I want to notice for you, are you a player that sets up with some forward shaft lean? Are you a player that sets up with the hands back? Or are you a player that sets up with the hands pretty neutral? With that information, we might make an adjustment, because I'll be perfectly honest, if you're a player that sets up with some forward shaft lean, we've either got to move the ball really forward in our stance, because if I have a bunch of forward shaft lean and I want to catch this thing in the center of the club face and not hit down on it, I'm probably going to have to move that ball pretty far forward. Or we might look at making a change to your setup. Personally, with a lot of players, I like to get them started from a spot where we have a shaft that is very neutral. And now with a little bit of awareness, I want that ball a little bit ahead of center. Hey, here's a little secret. Every week I send an email on Thursday mornings that gives you 3 things. It gives you 1 golf tip, it gives you 1 quote or stat, and gives you 1 little extra to help you play better golf and practice more effectively. To sign up, there's a link in my description. Make sure you get signed up, because on Thursday morning, the next one's coming. And for some of you wondering why I would do that, let's remember, if we want to make a consistent roll on these putts, we want to make sure we ideally hit it in the center of the putter head, and we want to feel like that club is actually maybe working a little bit up, or if we're thinking like angle of attack, we want to hit it maybe a little bit on the upstroke to promote that forward roll. We don't want to hit it on the downstroke. That's going to promote that bumping along. So we have our posture, we have our arms. Now I'm going to come down and I'm going to set that putter down with my nice neutral shaft. And now I'm going to build a stance where I know that my ball position is slightly ahead of center. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit a putt. So if you think of the things that we've talked about today, these are all things you can check very easily that I think would be very important starting points. Very similar to the full swing, if we mess some of these things up, that can really cause issues. And in putting specifically, usually those issues are contact issues, which will lead to speed control issues. And for so many players, our ability to control speed is the thing that really makes them 3-putt way too often, and is something that we have to get better at. So let's remember that our posture, we've got to feel like we're in the middle of our feet, and feeling like if we just let our arms hang, we have to have some space for those arms to work through. We're not too close to our body. When we get set up, we want to feel like our arms are soft and our elbows are pointing a little bit more in towards our body. We don't want to feel like our elbows are pointing out. And then now, if we were to go through a process, something I need you to check, does your shaft have forward shaft lean, or does it hang back, or is it more neutral? And then as a result, where's your ball position? check those 4 things, okay? And then as you were to go through a process, the way that I would go through it is I'll come up and I'll grip that putter. I really feel like I've got my elbows pointing towards me. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up that putter head first. Now I build my stance with some ball position. And then I go ahead and I stroke that putt. Okay? So that's our summary. But I told you to watch till the end because I told you I was going to give you a tour tip. The tour tip I want to give you, and this is something that I've heard several coaches that talk or that work with tour players, one thing we want to do when we talk about holding that putter grip, there's a ton of ways of holding the putter grip. Left hand low, claw, different things like that. This is talking more, let's say, traditional grip or left hand low. If we go back to this example where we get the arms and the elbows more into our body, one thing that we're doing is we're getting our palms of our hands facing each other. That's what I'm going to call a tour hack. And something I want you to think about is when we grip our putter, we want to feel like so right now, if I was to open my hands, my palms are facing each other. What happens with a lot of players that can lead to inconsistency in starting our ball online is they don't have those elbows pointed towards their body and their hands end up getting on top a lot. And what I mean by that is if I was to set up right now where players really try to get those arms straight, and then as a result, those elbows start to point out when they open their hands, right now, my palms are facing more in. This is going to lead to our hands fighting against each other in the putting stroke. So when I go back to that example, we have soft arms, we have elbows in, and as a result, I want to feel like our palms are pointing towards each other. A very quick check for you next time you're putting is when you get set up from this position, open your hands and let's see, are they pointing towards themselves or the palms facing themselves? Or are they pointing more down towards the ground? And when we start to see them more pointing down towards the ground, the elbows start to point out, and that can lead to very inconsistent putting. So that was a little tour tip video, or that was a little tour tip point on something that really good putters do that I want you to start doing when you set up for your putts. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We've run through a ton of things from setup, posture, how the arm should hang, our ball position, what our shaft lean looks like, how to set our arms, what our hands should be doing. All of these, I would call them basic setup things that I want you as a golfer to be aware of if you do them or not. You might be look through your putting and you might have a problem with speed control, and you might look through this video and identify one of the problems. I want to thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments down below. I respond to every comment. Have a great day.